Hi, hey Russ here. Welcome back to my shop. Today I want to talk about my shop vacuum system and how I set it up in my legacy workstation. But this isn't about my legacy workstation. This is about how you can take a shop vac and multitask it. You know, coming from the manufacturer, a shop vac is a multitasker. And you know me, I love multitaskers. Shop vac will suck, it will blow, and it will suck up water. Now, I don't really have a use for my shop vac in my workshop to be able to suck up water. I just haven't really found the use of that. But I have found that using that shop vac as a blowing device as well as a sucking device has become very, very handy in my shop. And I could talk for an hour about that alone, but that's not what this is about. This is about what I did and how I did it and why I set mine up the way I did. So, first thing we want to do is let's talk about the components to make up this shop vac blowing system that I have, so I can utilize that shop vac for a multitasker. I made a very professional drawing of a schematic of the whole thing, and I have my special unlasered pointer here to help you see the parts. There are 6 components to this shop vac system. First, you have the shop vac hose itself. You have the 2 connections for either sucking or blowing. Anything that you see with the blue arrow is it's vacuum pressure. Anything you see in pink arrows is air pressure after it goes through the shop vac. So it goes in, the hose is hooked up to the suction side. It goes up the hose and goes into your 2-stage baffle system. Whether it's a cyclone or a theme baffle, it doesn't really matter. You can argue about that, but that's not what this is about. I actually have both. I have 2 shop vacs in my shop, and one has the cyclone, one has my homemade theme baffle. And I've shown that to you before. What I like about them is it has that easy emptying bucket setup. I don't have to have any tools. I don't have to unsnap or snap. I don't have to do anything. I just slide the bucket out, dump it, and slide it back in place, and it's done. But you have to look at that video in order to see what I'm talking about. If you want, go back and look at that, the easy emptying bucket. So, you have your stage here. Once it comes out of here, most of the dust is collected in your collection bucket and debris. And what fine dust is left is very fine. It's going to be very difficult to clean the rest of it out. And you have to do it with an air filter. Well, a shop vac is the next thing in line. So all that suction is now coming through here and going into the shop vac. Normally right here is where they put an air filter. We've all seen them. We've all probably cussed them at one time or another. They get dirty so easy and they're next to impossible to clean. I don't care what anybody says. I've seen lots of different ideas of how to clean them. The best way is don't use it. I'm sorry, this is the worst filter I think out there. Even after you clean it, you get all that crap that goes up in between there that packs that you just can't get out. Plus, being on the vacuum side, the air that's left, that airborne fine dust, it actually impregnates into that paper harder because everything's coming in there so hard and fast, and it packs it in there. And that's why when you get this filter and it's all packed up with a fine powder, is because it's coming in there at a real high speed and it all is coming through this very small area. They claim because it's cleated, you got this 1,000 feet of paper filtration. Yeah, right. You do when it's clean, but once it starts building up, that thing clogs up and your air volume through this filter drops off dramatically very fast as it gets dirty. So that's not even the best filter to use for a shop vac air filtration. Why is that there and why is that in there? And why do they use this? That's what the manufacturer designed. It was the best fit their needs to have this one unit and everything self-contained in the unit. And that's great. If all you want to do is something simple with it, that's where you want to have that. But that is not the place for it. It kind of reminds me of an old story that I heard when I was younger. There was a speaker out there that I used to listen to called Zig Ziglar. And he once told me a story that what it was is he was watching his wife and he watched her cut the ends of a roast, cut the 2 ends off of it, and then she put it into a pan and put it into her toaster oven. And he looked at that and he goes, "Why'd you cut the ends off?" And she says, "Well, it makes it cook better. Besides that, that's what my mom did." He goes, "Really?" He says, "I got to call your mom. I got to find out why you really do that." So he called up her mother and he says, "Why do you cut the ends of the roast off before you put it in your oven?" And she says, "I think it's because it helps make it cook more evenly and better. Besides that, it's the way my mother used to always do it." Zig Ziglar said, "Well, I got to get to the bottom of this." So he turned around and he called his wife's grandmother. And he says, "Why do you cut the ends of the roast off before you put it in the oven, in the toaster oven?" And she says, "Well, I cut the ends of it off before I put it in my toaster oven because that's the only way I can get it to fit in there." I'm sorry, but that's the same thing with that filter right there. Why do you put it there? Because that's where they put it. It's not the best place to have your filter. It's quite simply. So anyway, I thought about that story and I had to share it with you. I always thought that it's kind of funny how you do something because everybody else does it. Thinking outside the box, I don't do that. So this is not the best place for the filter. The best place for the filter is actually on the air pressure side. The airflow of carrying that fine dust. Now, when it's in here, it's going full speed and hard. And so when that fine dust hits that paper filter, it really embeds into it much harder. And so it builds up really hard and heavy and fast. If you put it into air filter box on the pressure side, and make that box bigger than the air filter itself, so the air flowing through this hose that's under pressure, when it hits the air box, it's going to dissipate out, and now the actual air pressure around is going to actually drop off. So what fine air doesn't at that point fall down is going to go into that air filter, but it will not really embed into it near as deep as it does when that filter is right here. Just my thought, but that's kind of what I was thinking about. So, mostly in between, I use the 2-inch PVC pipe on this. So, there's a couple places where I used a little bit of flex hose just to make it easier and get everything lined up, or maybe make it easier to be able to pull it apart and take a component off. So, some of the pieces I do have some flex hose on, but mostly it's just 2-inch PVC. Makes it easy. Ready-made material is what I used here for everything. So, now that we know about the filter and where does it really belong and why putting it there is not necessarily the best idea, let's talk about why we have a blast gate, which is the next component after the shop vac. When it goes from vacuum to pressure, first thing it does is it goes into a blast gate, and that blast gate converts the air and diverts the air into two directions. It'll either divert the air up into this connection here. This connection and this connection are next to each other, so I can take this hose and hook it here if I want to suck something, or I can take the hose and hook it here if I want to blow. If I'm going to use it as a blower, that's when you convert this blast gate, because you're diverting the air to go up and out and into the hose, so you have that hose to blow the air. If you put the hose to the suction side, then you want that air to go out and into your filter box so that you're filtering that air, because you're using that hose to suck up debris. Therefore, you want to filter that air. If you're using it as a blower, you're not sucking up any dirt or anything. So what you blow out is what's in the air to begin with. So the only air dust you're going to get from that when you're using it as a blower is what's in the air already, or what you put in the air by using it as a blower. So you don't need to filter it unless you're using it to suck up dust, using it as a shop vac. So, but by diverting this air into this box and releasing that pressure so that the pressure drops in this box, you make it even better to be able to clear that dust out. A lot more of it's going to fall down rather than going out that air filter, because the pressure isn't going to be as great, and it'll slow down somewhat as it hits that filter. So it's not going to embed. Let's take a look at my air filter box real quick to show you what I'm talking about. And this is the air filter box right here. I have my air filter here. This is a 16 by 25 by 5 inches deep filter. So all my cleats go in there pretty deep. And this is something, I actually inherited this, but they're not that expensive when you buy this type of filter. And to me, this type of filter is much better than a tightly woven cleated filter like this. Even the big ones like they use on the big dust collectors, those things can tend to still suck the dirt up into the crevices a lot easier and better. By having it here, the air is not going to embed into this quite as much. And if I accidentally fill my baffle system in my shop vac up accidentally with too much and it fills full and the debris starts going through the shop vac and out, first thing I'll see is my glass piece here. I'll see all that come accumulate down in here. So I'll know immediately there's a problem. That's one of the reasons I have this glass here. The other thing you want to keep in mind, when I built this box, I also put a 4-inch blast gate in here that goes into the box. So when I go to clean this filter, I also use this. I take my shop vac, my dust collection vacuum system, 4-inch hose, and I set it on there and I open up the blast gate and I turn it on so that now this is drawing the air. So everything in that box is now going through this air filter and coming out here. So I've actually reversed the flow of air in this box. If I take my shop vac now as a blower and blow that filter out, it's going to take all that dust and push it away from my air filter. And guess what? Because now this vacuum here is pulling all the air out, all that debris will fall down and go out the shop vac. I can actually clean this filter, I suspect, many, many times before I ever have to replace it by doing it this way. So cleaning this is much better, and I have to do that. How often do I have to do that? I don't know yet. It obviously has to do with the amount of time you use it, how often you use it. It has to do with how much debris you really are putting through this thing. So there's a lot of factors as to how often you have to clean it. Eventually, the filter may even get so bad I have to actually break down and replace it. But I suspect that the amount of time it will last is going to be a lot longer by having this blast gate on here. Also, on my shop vac itself, because not everything can be here, and sometimes if this thing gets full, and then you and I both know what happens, that all debris goes up the hose and comes out, and it'll end up filling this thing up. Well, what I did here is you put another blast gate on right here in your bottom on the vacuum side of your shop vac. You have another 4-inch dust port here. So that every now and then, in order to clean this thing out, rather than taking it out and opening it up, I can just open this blast gate up, put my dust collector on there, and suck everything out of here through here. And it'll clean out 99% of what's in this here by doing that. So this is like a little clean out on my shop vac itself in case this thing starts to fill up. Will this ever fill up? I don't know. The only thing I didn't do that I probably wish I had, and I still may do it, is I didn't put a window on here like I did on my air box, my air filter box. This doesn't have any window on it. But if I really want to, I can open up the blast gate and look inside there to see what's inside if I really want to. But cleaning this out, having this on here, is not a bad idea. If you're going to do this system, you might want to put another blast gate right on your canister of your shop vac so that you can actually empty this out without taking it apart if you want. So that's how the whole system works. Let me show you real quick the whole system and how it is on mine. This box, air filter box, is actually going to set up here on my workstation box at the very end. And I have on this side, this is my hose that I take and it hooks into the PVC pipe right at the blast gate. This hooks into the blast gate so that when I convert the blast gate, it goes into here, which takes all the air into my air filter box. And this just sets up there. So that's how that part works. Right here, let me zoom in just a hair. Right here is my hose connections. This is my hose, and I have a connector here, PVC pipe here and here. This is my suction, and this is for blowing. If I want to use this outlet for blowing, this is my blowing blast gate. I pull it out, air is coming out of here. It's coming from the shop vac straight out here. No filtration. If I push that in, excuse me, then the air, instead of coming out here, is going in through my blast gate and into this hose, into my air filtration. So I can quickly, easily, if I want to do suction, I just switch the hose, I push the blast gate in, and then now I can use it as a shop vac. If I want to use it as a blower, I convert my hose, I pull my blast gate out, and now my hose is actually blowing instead of sucking. So my shop vac does both jobs very quickly and very easily. And it really is handy to have that blowing capability in my shop. I have found using it more and more ever since I got it done. And now that I have my filtration box done and up in place, my air is filtered when I'm using it as a shop vac. So it should help keep my shop cleaner. So anyway, one more thing I want to talk about. The shop vac itself, because there's no filter on it, it's just really a squirrel cage. It's all I'm really using that for if you think about it. The air sucks in on one side and it's air pressure coming out the exhaust port. That's all it is. If you remember back, last year early, I took an old squirrel cage motor here. This is one of those blowers that was used to blow up those tents that kids can get in and bounce around on. And you can buy these on eBay. And I used one to make a leaf blower, which I use all the time for blowing my driveway and cleaning the sawdust to keep it kind of clean out there after I use the sawmill. So anyway, instead of a shop vac, these things would be perfect for that. This is your air suction side, and right here is the blowing side. This is just the squirrel cage. This is a lot smaller than a shop vac. And if I wanted to, I could put my thing baffle and connect it here and connect my blast gate here to convert my air. And I could do the same thing with that I do with a shop vac. So you can make this system actually very compact if you want. You could make this system using using a vacuum cleaner from a house, and let that be your vacuum suction. So you can use just about anything that will create vacuum and convert it to air pressure. You can use it for your shop vac. The other thing that you want to think about for your shop, you're thinking outside the box. The other thing you want to keep in mind is where you want to put it. You don't have to put it overhead like I did. Here, you could mount everything and design it and put it on a cart that you roll around your shop if that's more convenient for you. As long as you have the 6 components of your system, the hose connections, the theme baffle, the shop vac, the blowing blast gate, and the air filter, as long as you have all those components, you can fit them into any kind of cubicle area and make it as small or as big as you want. You could do a full-size 4-inch dust collection system in the same way to use that for blowing if that's what you wanted to do. Or put a blast gate on it so that you can filter the air coming into the shop when you're using the scent vac, your dust collector in the shop, and then in the summer months when you have the door wide open, just move that blast gate and let that blow outside and save your filter. So the blast gate idea and using the blower side this way is a good idea, and you can put this anywhere. I originally was going to do this and put it all underneath my workbench, but I decided that I kind of wanted it over there, and that's why I ended up doing it and putting it overhead. But you can do this system anywhere you want. So anyway, I wanted to show this to you. Now that I completed my filter box, it's in full use, and I really do love it. It's been a great addition to my shop. So there was a lot here. I'm sorry if I went on too long. This is probably a little longer video than I usually do, but there was a lot here. And if you have any questions about how I did this or why I did something in particular that I forgot to mention, or if you have a better idea how to do one of these things, not only would I love to know it and hear about it, but I suspect a lot of my viewers would love to too. If you're a service provider, as well as a content provider, as well as a content viewer, and you want to take this idea and run with it and make your own, feel free to do it. The only thing I ask of you is that if you use my idea, don't be afraid to mention me. But if you don't, that's okay too. You do what you want to do. So I do appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. If you liked what you saw here, please say so. Most importantly though, please come back again, because quite honestly, we're nowhere near done. Thanks, and hopefully we'll see you again very soon.